Hi, I hope you'll join me today where I'll be painting this pink floral teacup. Today I'm using my Sonnet and SeimiArt watercolors, my size 6 round Intuition brush. I have my watercolor palette handy. I have 2 jars of water, one for cleaning my dirty brush and the other for painting. I have a clean cloth for dabbing any mistakes or puddles. And I'm also using my 350 GSM watercolor paper. These are 8 by 10s. I've cut this down to 4 by 5. Let's get started. So, I don't know how. I think I have some pigment on the side of my jar, like at the rim, and that is at least the second time I have grabbed that. I used black in a painting earlier, and I'm pretty sure that that's what that is. Okay, I'm not worried about it because I am going to have background color there, and I'll have flowers and whatnot, and that can just be some shading. Okay, had a little interruption there, so get this nice and wet again. And you know, I don't know how perfect excuse me, I don't know how perfect the teacup has to be really for this. I'm not sure it has to be perfect, but because I did one the other day and it was not, I mean, the edges were a little messy, but I came back and added shadow, and it just cleaned the whole thing right up. So I don't really know that it has to be altogether that perfect. And I really, you know, I took a bit of extra time there, but I'm not sure that it, you know, was necessary. So okay, this is my SeimiArt lavender, and oh gosh, I've talked about this color so much for multiple reasons. One reason is that I love it, and it's just a gorgeous background color, and you know, always looks good. But the other reason that I talk about it is because it's so misnamed, because I see it more as a periwinkle. It's definitely more of a blue than a purple. I mean, even at the lightest wash. So I like to tease it a little bit because I just don't think that it is a lavender. So I want to create a lot of texture in this background, so I'm just making lots of little strokes and whatnot, and then I'm taking some water on my brush here to kind of push some of that pigment that's really close to the teacup out away from it. I don't want a hard defined shadow there. Okay, and I'm trying to work rather quickly on this just so that my blending is easier. I mean, it really just, that's just to make it easier on me. Y'all, this voice. It's such a hassle right now. And I think I could also use my size 6 flat brush, but that would be a nice brush to use. It would give me some nice texture, because I could alternate the direction and the strokes and whatnot. And I do like to use that when I'm doing a background on, you know, on a painting That flat brush is a nice choice. Okay, very dark there, but I'm okay with that. I'm gonna blend it in. And I'm okay with this too, but I will add a bit of water, adding some water over to the side anyway, so I can kind of outline this handle, and then inside the handle. Okay, then just keep this kind of moving. These little bare spots, I actually kind of like to have some. I feel like it gives me a little natural highlight in there at times, and I just think it looks fine. So I usually leave those, some of them, if I can keep from accidentally squiggling over them, that is. That's not always possible either, because sometimes my hand is just going. So yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. And so I've got some options here, but I think what I'll do is add some. I want to add just some loose green in some places where I feel like I would have some greens, and it's great to do this while this is wet because it will just kind of bleed and stay very loose, and so you don't have these defined edges, and just kind of making some little layers of this. So where I have some solid sort of, then I just dot in kind of an outline. So just a few little things, and then that little hint behind the handle. And I could go in and do some pigment too that will be, excuse me, for my florals. But I'm not going to do that today because, well, actually, I will do a little bit. I will do it in the outer areas. Gosh, that's a lot. Where I'm not concerned about preserving so much detail. And I don't want to be matchy-matchy. So I'm not trying to have things that are the same on both sides, but I am trying to balance where I have a certain tone or a certain darkness of a pigment. Then I try to be sure that on another side I have that, you know, a similar level of pigment, because I don't want to have really dark really dark on one side and then, you know, something super light on the other. I like it so far. It's really, yeah, I like it. Okay, that was entirely too dry, but I'm just taking a little water, and I did kind of, not only did I drag my brush, but I also blotted it on my cloth. So I want to let that dry just a little, and while it's drying, I think I'd like to take my Payne's Gray and start on my teacup. And see, you can't even see the pencil marks really. The one pencil mark here where the cup and the handle meet, really. And that's just about it. I mean, it's, with a background, I think you can get away with that. And I'm just blending there where I missed a little bit. But I don't think that, you know, it's worth being super worried about. I like to keep this really loose. And so I'm going to get some of my Madder Lake pigment ready, but then I'm going to work in this, in the gray. I'm just using gray. It's, you know, it's nice. The Payne's Gray is nice with a cool background because it's a very cool gray. And actually what I want to do is, using clean water, I want to go ahead and brush water over my cup. Now I want to be a little careful getting to these edges. I used a lot of water on the background, and I don't really want to meet those, you know, the cup and the background up, as far as, you know, I don't want this water to touch those wet areas, because then it'll all just kind of bleed together, at least some, and I don't want that. I'm trying to avoid that. Now the big part of this is really wetting the side of the cup where you want your shadow, because that's where you're really going to put your pigment in at first, and I want that to be this left side of the cup. I just usually have my shadows on that side. You do not have to. I just usually do. And I'm taking a light wash of this Payne's Gray and just going down the side of that all the way to the bottom. And see, I went out just a tiny bit there. That's going to be okay because it's going to get a little bit of shadow anyway when I come back and do that. And then just rinsing my brush and starting over here. You can see I did not rinse very well, but just blending that together. And you can leave a little white in the cup. I think that makes a nice, you know, just makes some nice highlights. Okay, that's going to really need to be blended. So again, just going kind of from this side. You know, for a second I'm just thinking, did I accidentally get my black? But I didn't. This is gray. And I think a bit of shadow up here, since you'll have some flowers and leaves and whatnot, just kind of makes sense for it to be also dark there and then dark closer to the bottom. But then otherwise, you know, pushing some of that pigment around Just push it where you want it to go. And I do have quite an outline there, so I think I'll just go ahead and try to very subtly outline this on this side, so I have a deeper outline on the other side where I have more shadow. And just put in a little bit more. Oh gosh, I went out with that too. I'm having a day. Just so many of those silly things happening. Let's see what happens if I dab that. Okay, not too bad. Just silliness going on. Okay, I like it. I think it's going okay. Now, unfortunately, I had let my water get a bit tinted with that Madder Lake Red, and some of this cup is really just quite tinged with that, and so it's almost, to my eye, almost a beige. Like there's that much in there. But I think it's gonna be okay once it dries. And you know, what's the worst that can happen? I have kind of a creamy beige piece of china. I think it'll be okay. Putting a little, well, I think that goes well to have a little bit of a shadow up there because of the florals, but I do want a deeper shadow underneath on the undersides of these. So I may just dab that and kind of rework it a little and see. I don't know, maybe I'm just not picky about that, but I think that almost just works how it is. And I may blot that. Okay. Yeah, I like that. All right, I want to go in and start with my florals, and I'm using my Madder Lake Red. I feel like it's so easy for me to get so fussy with these teacups, and I'm really trying to avoid that. I don't want to be too precious with any of that. So I want to go in, I'm making my messy centers, and I'm just making them kind of randomly. I'll overlap a few places where I have this pink, but I do want to be sure to be kind of asymmetric in how I do this. And I want these really puddly, really puddly. Okay, one more up here and then one more out here. Okay, and you know, I've got these little background florals, but I am going to put just, you know, just a dot or two in that, and then just keep those really less defined, like things that are peeking out from greenery. And I'm taking my brush, I'm rinsing it off, and then dragging the excess water onto the side, the rim of the jar. And then I'm just touching these in, you know, 4 or 5 petals. so easy. You almost don't have to even shape these. These petals kind of create themselves. And I'm trying to be mindful of leaving the centers open because I just like that. I feel like, you know, it gives the look of the center of the flower. So I try to do that. It doesn't always work, but and I don't mind if these overlap and kind of bleed together, kind of thinking about you know, where I would have the petals, which direction the flowers would go. So sometimes for these down here, I just kind of let them droop. These are so fun. Really just so fun. Okay. Just a couple more over here. And see how that existing pigment that I dropped in when the background was wet has just, you know, made a nice little foundation for this. It's helping to create that kind of an abstract look. Okay, that is a bit heavy pigment on that side, so I'm going to go back with that just to dab that with my cloth. And see, perfect. Really nice. Maybe even dab this up here. Just a little. Sweet. Yeah, I love how abstract that feels to me. Okay, and then I'm just getting my olive green pigment ready. I tend to do my pigments kind of one at a time because I don't like them to just dry on my palette, and I tend to just make what I think I'm going to use. I'm going to give that a minute because I don't want these greens bleeding into my pink flowers. So I think I'll go ahead and give my teacup here a little more shadow. I want to kind of smooth this spot out, and it makes a good place for a shadow, I think. And then just a little bit, just a little line here. Okay, a little under here. You can use a smaller brush for this. I just usually use what I'm using. And just a tiny bit here. Okay, I like it. I want to smooth this out just a little. Okay, and I'm going to dab that, just have a little a little mark there, but I think it'll be okay. Just kind of brush it out and just we'll see. Okay, and I think the pinks are drying. They're just still kind of wet, so I'm going to go ahead and start with some of those greens, but I will just try to avoid touching my my florals too much. I think we're probably at the point where if they touch, it'll be okay. Let's see. Just need to figure out where to start. And then just remembering that wherever I use a deeper amount of pigment to go to the other side and do that same thing, or you know, not necessarily the same thing, but have something that's that same value of pigment. Oh, these are cute. And I don't mind these things blending or you know, bleeding some with the Madder Lake Red. At this point, I feel like it's, you know, it's not really detracting, and I like the abstract feel of it, and all those little, just the places where the pigment is kind of flowing and, you know, doing its own thing. I think that's looking really good. So I am happy with this. And then maybe a few little stems just here and there. And they don't have to be, you know, particular. They don't have to necessarily make the most sense. Okay, and maybe just a couple more leaves. Gosh, I love this. I love how much blur there is, and it's just making me so happy. I see something in this flower right here, just this little streak, And I want to soften that up. Now, I could end up with kind of a hard line there when it dries, but because I ended up with quite a bit of water, so I'm just going to give that a little dab, and then I'm just going to dot my pigment back and kind of direct it a bit. Yeah, I like it. This is just really, for me, such a, I don't know, just goals for me, because I feel like I struggle in getting things truly very loose, and I love that this is ending up this way for me. So I want some shadow here. Using a very light, hopefully, wash of my Payne's Gray. And I've drawn in this line, but then I've also just kind of made this, you know, a loose, oh, I don't know, more of an inverted teacup, maybe. That was kind of my thought, anyway. Okay, and I may smooth this. I like that bleed there, but I just think it needs to be a tiny bit smoother. So I'm just gonna let it make its own little gradient. Yeah, I like that. And then I think up at the top of this teacup, we could have a little bit more shadow. There are just some places where, you know, we've got these florals, and so I don't always do this, but I'm just gonna go kind of in those places where I've got some florals kind of drooping and whatnot, and see if I can just put a tiny bit of shadow in there. Just a tiny, taking just the most subtle wash of this Payne's Gray, and then pushing it where I think I would have the most shadow. I like that. I don't think that has to be perfect. This is, you know, that's not what I'm going for here. Yeah, I think that just added that tiny bit of dimension it needed. And I'm about to call this done for me. I love it. I hope that you had a good time watching or painting along. I had a great time. I'm just really feeling this and loving it so much. This is something that I don't achieve a whole lot, just keeping things really kind of loose and faded and muted, and you know, goodness me, I'm loving it so much. So I hope that you do too, and I hope that you're happy with what you've painted. And if you haven't painted this, I hope you'll save it and paint it. Let me know how it goes for you, and as always, happy painting.